Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. It's Julie with Spirit of Matter. And we have the ascendant here adjacent to Procyon. So I'm going to call on Procyon for sweetening conflict, for sweetening the message, and the great denuclificator. And of course, I'm going to talk about denuclification, political prisoners, and release of whistleblowers like Julian Assange. Or geert Wilders, which I believe is political prisoners as well. And I addressed it in other videos, I believe. So let's talk about denuclification. I have mentioned the connection to child abuse, child trafficking, torturing children, whether as ritual, as trade, and that basically is used for extortion, whether politicians or anybody that is a decision maker. So this means, and in Israel, for example, we have a famous lawyer, Zionist. So from her perspective, she's not persecuted for anything political other than wanting to bring people who committed incest or child abusers or sexual assault perpetrators to justice. And she could do great things, amazing things. And but when it came to a Wagner fund that basically elected all of our tier people in academia, in the army, and so on and so forth, with which I'm in conflict of interest, of course. And she couldn't do it because she was afraid for her life. And so if you have to vouch for the torture of children. In Netherlands, I talk a lot about Peter R. de Vries. He started his career by making sure that not to send the wrong person on murder to jail, and then he had to vouch for a judge that basically used to blame people, unrelated people in the murders that he would perform as he would do porn with children, allegedly. Yes, and the taxi driver died. And Peter R. de Vries had to lie in front of camera and vouch for this person, because that's the person he could work with if he wanted to bring murderers to justice, and he did cold cases all his life. So what we run into is a situation where basically, because these children are used for extortion, in order for the top tier people to do as told. So this is a structural problem. This is not Deming or the people in Brussels. It is a structural issue. Okay, when I began to work structurally, when I was Me Too veteran, and I said, no, I don't want to persecute the person because it's obvious to me that he is interlinked. Okay, he would not even be able to look me in the eye. And I saw something that he is interlinked, and he's somebody sent for him, and it's not against me personally. I was just another peace activist, okay, for not to make a hippie type of peace relations, but also to make account for real security challenges. And I wanted to speak with people who knew a thing about this, and for them to have a panel. And then I wanted to have like a peace party, like a hippie party, to get people again, because people were very drained of trying to do solution for Israel-Palestine. And probably one person in a series of people who I don't even get to know their name. And the way that child abuse connects to this is because we would all be blocked at these places where it's not the people, because they are expendable like the children, okay? The biggest pedophile, Epstein, is expendable like the children, okay? The only reason they would keep him alive so that he would continue to do this, because he already knows how to do this. But whenever they want, they can get rid of him and make another person do this. It's not a problem for them. And that ensures that the policies of perpetual war, continuing with trafficking of people, trafficking of weapons, having people in constant traumas of war, and this has been ongoing since at least the First World War, okay, as far as we know in modern history. And so Now I want us to begin to identify what is the vouching for these people, for the child trafficking, and what is of not. Because there are policies that are vouching for child trafficking, okay? And the policies that don't, okay? And so for a lot of times we think a certain person is targeted, yes, for certain reason, but when you are beginning to vouch, then you're already a step closer to assassination. And people would always have like reasons. Okay, Peter had his family. Yes, this lawyer wants to do something good. Okay, she wants what the people that she can bring to justice to be brought to justice, and not to be politically persecuted herself. So people always are caught up in this. But I want us to begin to identify when is a person being caught up. And when they are political prisoners. So for Julian Assange, we see immediately that he genuinely talked about the plan to enslave humanity, to have perpetual war, and we are interrupting in the war. Correct. Whenever you try to make peace, you are. Whenever you try to do something right at work, you are persecuted. This is correct. Yes, for Geert Wilders, when he says, no, I don't support Sharia law, I don't want Sharia law to come to Europe because it is hurting women, because it is genitalia mutilation, because it is child brides and honor killings. I don't want this here. So this is correct. Yes, he cannot talk about Opus Dei. He cannot talk about, and he even so much as mentioned Brussels. That Brussels brought all these people that support Sharia law, which is true. 1996, there was the case of I think it was Marc Decroix, I don't remember, and he was kidnapping and raping children. But the issue was that he couldn't possibly humanly rape all these children that he kidnapped, and they were showing signs that they were raped. But of course, when it comes to hospitals, they decided not to do what they were supposed to do, and not to check and not to put DNA checks. And so he was accused, he was expanded. But it was all the politicians, the Supreme Court, the people that allegedly came and raped these children, and these children that were used for extortion. None of them was persecuted. And then you think, where are we the people? We the people, all the Belgian people, they began to raid, it was 1996, they began to raid the parliament, they began to raid the Supreme Court. They wanted justice for these children, okay? And I also, if you are targeted individual, SRA, person who has been used as expandable children projects, I want you to know that this happened because we don't see that, okay? We don't see that on the media. And you don't see the many people that are in your favor, that are aware, that are supportive of you. And I want you to know that you are believed and you validated and you're seen. And so what happened in 1996? Well, then Brussels began to import all kinds of refugees. And it's very easy to make, when the business of child trafficking is threatened, to make wars and to bring the people that, and pay money to bring the people that are not willing to just escape from, let's say, Sharia law, which is another form of Opus Dei, just different language. And so this is where Europeans began to do caricatures of Islam and then do it in that way. But the problem was indeed the Supreme Court and the practice of expandable children in Europe. And we see, I want to talk about also Gideon van Meer, because he would tell me, oh, here is a politician that mentions ritual abuse of children. Yes, it is true. If you have seen the parties, Forum for Democracy, that they began to interview the Tates, and it's nothing personally against the Tates. They're just another person who are being extorted to make this extortion. Okay, it's not like I have something personal against the Tates, but what they do, they basically enable human trafficking that enable child trafficking. And so they try to make it so that we will not be able to vote for Gideon van Meijeren without promoting that, and we would not be able to vote for Geert Wilders without promoting making a jail, an open air prison out of Netherlands, which is basically what it means to deport people and then keep the borders up, of course it will be used against citizens. But then I want to talk again about Assange. Both Assange and Wilders mention a word that should be a key word that opens our mind to something. And they mention the word Thatcherism, Margaret Thatcher. Okay? Now ask yourself, if you want to help the children, how do we avoid child labor? Yes? Or we make sure that the parents have safe, secure jobs that leave them time to be with the family. That is true for even one parent, that single parent that raises a child as a single, otherwise there's no good domestic relations, okay, otherwise it's domestic abuse of children. Even one person, because let's say a person is sick, a person is this, or a person, and not just divorce, okay, many things can happen, that they in a very part-time job can support for the housing, for the food, for the children, and have time with the children. This is what needs to be for us to keep children from being sold, from being kidnapped, for being trafficked. That's what needs to be. Okay, and they would have enough time to tend to if there's a problem, somebody else's child is in trouble, that they can help for each other. Thatcherism, Margaret Thatcher, and it's not against Margaret Thatcher, she was doing this in the context of, yes, of a country where people would bring children because they had no ability to work. Again, okay, so what she did, she said, it's like enough for people to bring to have like child or youth pregnancy, which is still topping in London and in Britain in general. And she said, okay, enough with all these benefits regarding children. We don't want more children. But what this does is basically enables the child trafficking again. Okay, we have to allow people to make a life while making a living. That's the only way through. Make a life while making a living, and even in a very part-time job. It's the only way through. Okay, there's no reason for people to have to pay property tax for living in a place. And we know, as I said earlier, that even for people who are schizophrenic, okay, which is it's a washing for political prisoners, because every person like this, when they do get housing first, as per Finland, without dependency of whether they are able to work and without time limit, and they are believed, that they begin to heal and they begin to speak, usually it's about whether it's incest or sexual abuse or things that could be even political. And that's why we see now that Finland joined NATO and Finland targeted, and the sovereignty of Finland again is threatened, because what these people know, yes, and it's for them to heal, they have to speak. And so when you see people mentioning the word Thatcherism, they are basically forced to undermine their own freedom. This is what happens to Julian Assange, as what's happening to Geert Wilders, and because they are now enabling child trafficking, they suffer consequences. So Wilders, I don't know if he has children, but Julian Assange could not see his children. Okay, could not see his children. He could not go out of prison to see his children, and he's in Belmarsh. And you see how it comes back to children. And not only that, as in such position, you have to be represented by a lawyer. This type of lawyers always, as we had the case with Amal Clooney, who is befriending George Clooney, the wife of George Clooney, and who has to, very much like Hillary Clinton, defend Epstein-related affairs, okay, allegedly. So this is where now he is dependent on vouching for what he tried to end, because basically to end the war and to allow for people to have to make a life while making a living, this is this is what his action for. This is what WikiLeaks stand is basically supposed to do, okay, to end the state of perpetual war. But is forced to talk about Thatcherism. The Thatcherism talk was way before he was imprisoned. So these are from interviews of 2010, 2011, and he was already forced to make this okay, to do this. I don't know. Again, I say this because I want us to be aware of the people that are political prisoners. He was basically political prisoner as of the time he was forced to say the word toucher. And I want us to understand this because right now, fortunately, the topic of ritual abuse of children, child trafficking, kidnapping of children, whether it's Israel, whether it's Norwegian, whether it's Finland, other countries, is coming to the discourse, and it's very good. By the way, before 7th of October, they disclosed the files for the children of Yemen that were kidnapped in Israel by Israel and was sold. And then they covered it up again, and then there was 7th of October. Okay, so this is for us to understand that yes, the attempts to put humanity in constant war because it's business, and at the heart of this, there are people at top ranks that are supposed to do as told because they are extorted by filming them doing, horrid things to children. Even so much the children die in this. Okay, so this is important, yes, to understand. I'm not here. I don't believe in enabling pornography, and so I don't give you pornographic details because I don't think it's good. But I do want you to understand the damage. Okay, what is done, and how this is enabled, and so. Many times you would see, even, let's talk about Kanye West, that he was speaking up against corruption in the music industry, and then we saw him like making porn films. I saw even for the channel that hosts Jaguar Right, suddenly they have like something that looks like OnlyFans, and again, we just don't exist in society where there is sex positive sex work as per today, as the problem is not with sex work or with being sexual. The first person who is pro being comfortable in a sexuality and is important. If you are sexual, we are asexual people also, but it's important for people to be connected with the sensuality and be free to express it in a way that is respectful of themselves and others. And so, yes, all this fumbling with life energy through children, through sex, through birthing, through dealing in death, okay, for ritual sacrifice, ritual torture, ritual rape, that we saw probably in Ukraine as well, 7th of October, and very likely also in Gaza. Okay, if they don't talk about it, because then they would be having to say, well, that's what happened in Israel, okay, by Palestinian people that were tortured and very likely given drugs, so much so that they would do it. And so, yes, there are conflicts to these issues, but also, yes, we must understand that when we see people mentioning these code names that are basically code names for child trafficking. Thatcherism is code name for child trafficking, okay? Basically not allowing the parents to have support for the children and not allowing the children to have food at school, okay? Margaret Thatcher, the milk snatcher, that was the thing. And that basically is enabling child trafficking. And she was very likely extorted to do so. So this is important for us to identify it because right now we are going to see a lot of death cults, okay? Death with dignity is a big topic. We're going to see a lot of death cults, and there are going to be a lot of attempts to replace, the old pyramids and so on. And we understand that there are going to be a lot of attempts to masquerade as new washing by the old. Okay, we still have not rid of Inquisition. All the wealth families, the Jewish wealth families, okay, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, they cut dividends to the church, which cuts dividends to the Vatican, which is the Inquisition that smuggled Dr. Mengele and threatened not only Jews, but threatened anyone who wouldn't convert to Christianity, much in the way the Sharia law does. So this is religious persecution that is antithetical to Christ, to the Christ impulse, and to Christ consciousness. So basically, what we see that is Christianity is antithetical to Christ. Okay, Christ doesn't want you to die for them. Christ doesn't want you to be. On the other hand, Christ sacrificed himself so that you are forgiven, so that you can live a good life. Okay, so that you're not be able to be shamed and for your freedoms to not be taken away from you under any which excuse, because you are a child of Christ. Okay, so that is antithetical to torture, antithetical to wars, antithetical to all of that. And this is important to understand. Okay, so this is people talk about spiritual warfare. So a lot of people also in Israel tell people only God will save us, only God will. Christ consciousness, yes, it's good to connect with Christ consciousness, but enable the Inquisition? No. Thatcherism? No. This enables the Inquisition. And so it's very sad because we see a person in jail, cannot see their children, maximum security jail, not having dignity and respect that a human being deserves, because with the people they get to do these things when they don't grow with love, when they don't have, even the criminals, okay, when they don't have dignity. Okay, so we need housing first for the survivors, and also dignity for the people. Okay, that for to eliminate crime. We know that whenever this is done, crime is eliminated. But whenever so it's not like we don't know what is needed for. But we are taught to think that world peace is it can never be, because people are so and people are so, and it's bullshit. And so people are not usually all that war-oriented. Even Mars, the planet of war and so on, fighting, and yes, it's also the planet of lovemaking. Okay? Yes, to do something with yourself in life and lovemaking. So that is, and this is also how we see political prisoners within the system, which is the case for Yes Wilders, that he's basically being in kind of like home imprisonment while committing no crime. I mean, is he a criminal? Is he? I don't know. If there's something that has to leak, maybe leak it. But it's only said, I don't want Sharia law in Europe, which I think is, and I don't want Brussels to bring all these people, which he said in 1996-7, and then was life threatened, and he's been in home imprisonment, supposedly as protection. Okay, when Peter the Vries was offered such protection, he says Salamat, and he was assassinated. Okay, so this we have a man that's 2.5 decades, or 2 decades in. Yes, 2 decades in such home imprisonment, loss of all of the freedom for stating the obvious if we don't want honor killings and genitalia mutilation and Sharia law in Europe. So, but for the policies, for what they make them do is to comply with COVID, to comply with making it, Netherlands into an open-air prison, kind of like Gaza, and that would be used against people. So what can we do? First of all, we can identify what is indeed enabling denuclification, okay, because when there are masses of people suffering, they make manifestation for death, okay, they want everyone to die. And so we can make understand what enables that, and then we can understand what enables child trafficking and what enables these things. So of course, in any policy, if it is Thatcherism, whether it's creating an open-air prison, nobody comes in, nobody comes out, which what will be, okay, because that leader they will assassinate, and then another leader. And this country is North Korea, as Peter said. He said that was the first message, and it was not something to be questioned. It sounds ridiculous, but North Korea was also not North Korea, because it's also relatively new. It was not like that forever and ever. Neither was Afghanistan, neither was Gaza, neither was Israel. Okay, so this is, and I want you to also know that there are people who are peace activists, not peace activists in a way so to subdue freedom, but in a way that to support individual rights and sovereignty. Individual rights, and why is this so important? Individual rights, because if you are a parent and you're, I don't know, let's say you're Indian, okay, your husband starts to beat you. Okay? You should be able to have your own housing, your own support of children, support for the children, independently. You can say, I leave this husband. Not to wait until you are murdered, and then the children maybe sleep with them, maybe not, and all the tribe is like, yeah, the colonialism. Okay, this happening to the tribe today. We know that, and so colonialism becomes a washing rather than to have sovereignty and so on. Individual rights, they tackle this on the level of the individual. Because if I give community rights, so I give community rights to the same people that oppress children, oppress women, I still get mass war, because still masses of people are going through torture and manifest death. So there will be mass death. It's very simple. It's very simple. Well, for individual rights, and you see countries, the more they have individual rights, the more they are. Yes, but if they allow for human trafficking, for child trafficking, for this, then that's basically the beginning of the end. This is so for Norway. This is so, unfortunately, for Finland. Okay, and but it's also important for you to understand that if you have been thinking about this and like, why am I the only person that says that? You're not the only person. Okay, so open a mic, speak up. You're not the only person that says that. You're not the only person that thinks that, and you're not alone. Not within the system, for there is intelligence, CIA, Mossad, Shabak, what we call terror, or whether it's outside the system, with the people. You're not the only person who thinks that, you're not the only person who says that, and people have been attempting to do these interventions to denuclify, whether it's Mordecai Vanunu, whether it's Julian Assange, for the skill drillers, and then each of them, whereas Gideon Van Meeren, in each of them, in case something happens, they try to put me in the Nova many times. This is funny because I'm half Israeli, half Dutch. I don't like drugs. I don't like I don't like drugs. And so I don't go to these psychedelic nature parties. I'm not this type of person. And they thought maybe if I don't have a housing or this, so I was homeless. And all of this because what? Because I was going to naively to One Voice before it became V15 by this Wagner fund, I don't know. And they were saying, well, we're students, let's have a hippie party for people to have peace party, like hippies, but let's also have a panel for people who come from all the security, that they tell us what are security challenges, so everybody knows. We want this. Okay, what are the challenges? What is liable security? What would a good solution look like, security-wise, army-wise? Very naively. And only now I begin to connect the dots, because when Me Too happened to me, I said, well, it happens to a lot of people. Something in therapy happens to me. I said, okay, happens to a lot of people. Homelessness happens to me. I said, a lot of people are homeless right now. And then they tried to put me in Nova Party. I said, well, they tried to put a lot of people in Nova Party. And then I was like, yeah, but they were all peace activists. How come? Oh. What, because of this? And then I see X15. Instead of V15, they have now X15. So I already, even the sand clock, okay, the sand clock, for you see it in Israel right now, for you see it in WikiLeaks. This is also connected to these cults. Okay, so WikiLeaks could not exist outside of the cult, and then later Julian tried to bargain for justice. But he said he likes to design systems on a large scale, hopefully not North Korean systems. But yes, it's, what's obvious that it should be allowed to do whistleblowing. What's obvious is that we have many other whistleblowers other than Snowden and even Assange. But what's also obvious is that this Belmarsh thingy is not reasonable in any way, and this home imprisonment for 2 decades for a Dutch politician is not reasonable in any way. And the fact that I have every day to do rituals to get away from all these psychic attack that this sends, and I'm not the only one. Of course, they send it also to people, whether leaders, whether singers, whether common people. Okay, it comes to the common people when it's time for it to come to. But if you did anything activist towards peace, for sure you understand me. For sure you've had experiences that you were targeted, and even people. I met a person that was doing for people who were victims of child abuse and incest. And to her, they don't know what's energy. And she didn't know what is energy. She said, I don't know what this energy thing is. I don't believe in that. And of course, I had to cut contact with her. But even her, which was the most difficult case in Israel of child abuse, was not targeted. And even though she was doing a fund, even her was not targeted. It's like, that is so crazy for why these people targeted and those people not targeted. Oh, if you got to the point where you want to do something for peace, okay, for to change that, and she was like, yeah, we can only help the people that have like support from their families, and so we cannot help anybody. Okay, so you understand, she was bargaining for her own what she could do. It's not, I'm not blaming, of course. She did. I wish I could say she did good things for humanity, but she herself was abused by her own therapist, and she thought that her therapist was bad, but the others that he trained were good. And that's where I had to leave, because if she would know the amount of damages that were done, but she was thinking she was doing good. So yeah,